Tell me if somebody in the chat could tell me if you can hear me. Is anything coming through out there? Can you guys hear me? I need, can't hear you. Oh, wait, there we go. Now we might be good. Okay, can you hear now? Hold on. Everybody's saying they can't hear me, but here, give it a second. Give it a second. You can hear it now, I think. There we go. All right, now we're good. Nothing like, nothing like a little bit of technical difficulties. Thanks to everybody who chimed in and told me that you can hear me now. How else would we get this started, right? How else would we start a post-game show after that? There are times when, as you're watching games, you're covering a game. I'm doing a lot of things during a game, writing stuff during the game. We keep a running sort of game story on the site at Panther-Lair.com and, updating things and getting this ready and doing this and doing that. And you think about a lot of things during a game. You think about the course of a game. You think about what's happening in the game and what it sort of means, what you might write about it afterward. And for me, at least, there's part that's thinking about the post-game show. And I got to be honest, as this was going on, as this game was happening, there were points where I wasn't looking forward to the post. I shouldn't say I wasn't looking forward to the post-game show. I always enjoy these post-game shows. Even when we do them after our loss, I sometimes look back and I see that some of our most popular post-game shows, or at least most viewed post-game shows, have been after losses. I think our if you look at our most viewed live streams that we've done, the top two were last year after the West Virginia game and the Notre Dame game. Now, the live stream we did earlier this week about Heather Light getting fired quickly climbed the charts. That's, I think, now top three. I don't know where this one will end up, but it's interesting because those post-game shows after a loss end up being some of our most viewed post-game shows. So I shouldn't say that I was dreading doing this post-game show, but for a good portion of the night, particularly in the second half, I was thinking, boy, this is going to be an ugly one because we're going to be back to thinking that this team stinks, that the quarterback's no good, that the offense is no good, that Narduzzi's no good, that the program is no good. It was going to be an hour, and we would probably cut it off in an hour, of pretty much everything being down and out, and negative and just a big bummer on account of losing to your biggest rival or your most hated rival. Then the final 5 minutes of this game happened. Final 4:55 to be exact. And then something happened. Obviously, and I don't need to sit here and recount the game. I don't need to go through play by play and tell you about it was this play, that play, this pass, and that run, and all these different things. I don't need to do all that. You saw the game. You were probably at the game. You know what happened in the game. I don't need to recount all of it. But obviously, we have a lot to talk about from this win. 38-34 victory for Pitt in the 107th Backyard Brawl, a series and a rivalry that has produced some legendary games over the years, some instant classics, some games that have lived in infamy on both sides over the years, and some epic moments, some legendary moments. I can remember back, I think it was a Pitt game at Notre Dame in 2008, and Dave Wanstead talked about, like, this is the kind of game where legends can be made, and it was a legend of that day, Connor Lee and LaShawn McCoy. This game, this rivalry, the Backyard Brawl, is the kind of rivalry that lends itself to legends being made. Because look, Eli Holstein led this team on a comeback last week, a 3-touchdown comeback, where they were down 21 and ended up coming back, in the final 20 minutes of that game. To win by a point, a 22-point comeback. Epic. Epic. A bigger comeback than this game was, although they were down 10 with 5 minutes to go. So that was a pretty big deal. But 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when we talk about the games of the 2024 football season, and who knows what the next 9 are going to bring, and if they're anything like the last 2, we might not all survive it. But 10 years from now, when we talk about the 2024 football season, I can almost guarantee you that we will talk far less about the 22-point comeback at Cincinnati than we do about this comeback against West Virginia. Being down 10 with 5 minutes to go. Eli Holstein walking on that field and putting this team on his back, running, breaking tackles, scrambling for first downs, making big-time passes to Gavin Bartholomew and Konate Mumfield, throwing up a heave to Dejon Reynolds. Like, you know how we know that this is going to be an epic, legendary game that lives in Pitt fans' memory for a long time? Because you will always have a reason to remember the trivia questions of Dejon Reynolds and Derek Davis. Two guys whose ultimate contributions in their time at Pitt might be negligible, or might have been, if not for what they did in this game and the touchdowns they scored to lead an epic comeback against West Virginia at Acrisure Stadium. And Eli Holstein was the guy who made it happen. Eli Holstein put this team on his back, carried them down the field, and he didn't do it alone. I mean, Konate Mumfield had 2 catches for 34 yards on those final 2 drives. Gavin Bartholomew, a big 17-yard catch. Obviously, Dejon Reynolds, the touchdown catch. Derek Davis, the touchdown run. But Eli Holstein is the one who did all of it, who made it all happen. He is the guy. And it's funny, and one of the things I'll probably come back to a lot over the course of this post-game show, however long we go, an hour, 2 hours, 50 minutes. I don't know how long this will be. It'll be as long as we need it to be, right? One of the things I'll probably come back to is that for a good portion of this game, a solid chunk, particularly in the second half, but even a little bit before that, and a really good portion of the Cincinnati game, I was having my doubts. Not necessarily about this team or anything like that. I don't know if I've changed my record prediction yet, but for now, let's just say I'm sticking with my same record prediction that I thought they'd be up and down or whatever. But I had my doubts about Eli Holstein. For a good portion of that Cincinnati game. So you come out of the Kent State game, right? You go into the Cincinnati game, and you're thinking, all right, we're going to see what this kid's made of. And after about 40 minutes, you say, okay, maybe he's not made of all that much. Maybe he's really not that good. He can make some nice plays. He can do some nice things, but he doesn't have it. And then the final 20 minutes of that game, he has it. Big time. Now this game today, good portion of this thing, you're saying, yeah, it's just not there. It's just not there. He holds on to the ball too long. He's getting sacked a lot. The protection's not helping him. The offensive line was a big downside today, and the defensive line was only marginally better, but we'll talk about that all, I'm sure. But there was a good portion of this game where I said, Eli, maybe just not it. He's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just not there, and he'll just be okay. And then he goes out and puts together 2 of the biggest drives that we've seen out of Pitt in I don't know how long. He's out there looking like Kenny Pickett, carrying the team, and he doesn't look like Kenny Pickett. He doesn't play like Kenny Pickett. He's not Kenny Pickett. But he went out there, and for the first time since Kenny Pickett, put the team on his back and carried them to 2 touchdown drives and a win. Now, again, he can't do it by himself. He was the first person to say it. In between those 2 touchdown drives, you get a huge 3-and-out from Pitt's defense, including Jimmy Scott finally knocking over Garrett Green for a sack to force a punt. And so big, obviously that was big, but I can't get past that guy right there. And he pops up on the screen at the perfect time, number 10, Eli Holstein. I mean, what a performance. What a performance. And now he's got 301 yards, just barely got over the 300-yard mark, 3 touchdowns. Both of those numbers he hit for the 3rd game in a row. So he's got, 3. He started his Pitt career with 3 300-yard games, 3 touchdown games, and 3 wins. Perhaps most importantly, 3 wins. But also not unimportant, the fact, those other numbers, the 300 yards and the 3 touchdowns. And he didn't throw an interception today. So he took that off because he had an interception of each of the first 2 games. Knocked that off. Didn't have an interception today. Just a big-time performance. A big-time performance. In like so many games, in particular these last 2, what happened at the end is what we're really thinking about. It overshadows a lot of what happened before it. But look, that's why we have this post-game show, so we can talk about all of the things that happened earlier in the game. And lots of people already chiming in on the comments and the questions. Listen, if you want to be part of this conversation, put your comments and questions right over there in the chat screen. There's a lot there. And we're going to try and get through as many as we can. But what I always tell you, if you want to make sure your comment gets read or your question gets answered, be a super chatter. Click that little $sign. It's down there. Kick a couple bucks to the podcast, which we appreciate your support for sure. And we will make sure we read your comment and your question. And then we'll get to as many as we can from everyone else. But that's the best way to do it, is with the super chat. So do that, and we will make sure we get to it. I'm trying to decide. I know I'm stumbling over my words here because I'm looking at something. I'm trying to decide what to do for our Backshore Apparel shot of the game. Because and let's be honest, there might be more than one shot in this game. What was the Backshore Apparel shot of the game? I'll tell you what it was. And I'll start off with a little bit of historical precedent, okay? The game against Clemson in 2021. I forget if it was a third down or a fourth down or whatever it was. And Kenny Pickett ran a draw up the middle. And it was a play at a certain point in the game where when he got that first down, it was clinched. And it was clear that Pitt wasn't going to lose. It was clear that Pitt, I think by moving the change, they won the game. And you knew the game was locked up. And I remember it was probably the most emotion I've seen from Kenny Pickett in a game. After he got up, after that first down, pumped his fist, that kind of thing, did the first down mark. He got really fired up. Because that was the moment when you were like, by God, they're going to pull it off. There was an interception in the ACC championship game. It might have been A.J. Woods or maybe one of Eric Hallett's or something like that, where it hit you. You're like, by God, they're going to pull it off. And I'll tell you when that moment was today. Now, this was far less secure than either of those two moments, but there was a moment today. 1st and 10 from the West Virginia 30. Pitt's down 34-31. It's about a minute. I think they snapped the ball with 1:02 left to go. Eli Holstein drops back, steps up, hands on him. Defender's got his hands on him. He shakes the tackle, spins out of it, runs for 17 yards. Now, this was the culmination of a 7-yard scramble, a 17-yard pass to Gavin Bartholomew, and a 23-yard pass to Kanate Mumfield. They get back up, they get on the ball. Holstein breaks a tackle, runs for 17 yards. It's first down at the 13. And that was the moment when I said, by God, they're going to do this. Because, obviously, even at the 30, they were in field goal range. But you get to the 13, and you got the field goal. And at that point, at the 13, West Virginia called a timeout. And West Virginia called a timeout, too, to give the whole place a chance to explode, which they did. At that point, 51 seconds left to go. Pitt's still down by 3. First down at the 13. I said, they're winning this. They are winning this game. And so Eli Holstein breaking tackles, rushing for 17 yards on that play. That was the Backshore Apparel shot of the game. Kind of spilled a little bit on my hands. Oh, well. We'll smell like whiskey for the show. Listen, before we get into comments and questions and more thoughts here, if you don't know about Backshore Apparel, you really got to check it out. Backshore's got, first of all, it's run by a big-time Pitt fan, Mike. He's a huge supporter of Pitt. He's a Alliance 412 member. He's a big fan on Panther-Lair.com, fan of the podcast and all those things. And he makes great products. It's like beachwear, it's summer wear, it's beach tech, and he's giving you right now, if you go check it out, the hats are really cool, the shirts are really cool. It's not sports themed, but it's great for a sports fan to wear in the sun. Like today. Today it was super sunny out, and a lot of people on that visitor sideline were taking cover in the shade as much as they could. Well, they wouldn't need it if they had their Backshore hats and Backshore shirts. Right now, if you go to BackshoreApparel.com, you can get an exclusive discounted 10% off on hats and 25% off on t-shirts. Perfect for enhancing your summer wardrobe and accompanying you on unforgettable adventures. These stylish pieces not only elevate your look, but they also foster a deeper connection to the Backshore community. So use the code EOS, like end of summer, EOS10 to get 10% off on hats, EOS25 to get 25% off on t-shirts. BackshoreApparel.com is the place you need to go right now. But don't click out of our video, but go right now and check it out. BackshoreApparel.com. Bill Florigen says, started off as a super chatter, says, as John Blutarski said, holy yes. Yeah, I think there were a lot of people saying some swear words throughout that. I'll tell you what got the biggest exclamations, both in the press box and at the game. The touchdown pass to Dejon Reynolds. And I was just recounting this to someone else. 2nd and 30 from the 40. Eli Holstein throws a deep shot down the left side, into the end zone. And you saw the flag before the ball even got to Reynolds. So you're like, oh, okay, it's going to be a pass interference. And, Reynolds ends up on the ground. And when he stood up with the ball, like the entire press box and the entire stadium collectively went, holy yes, he's got the ball. He has the football. How did that happen? How did he make that catch? And I haven't seen a close-up replay on that. I'd love to watch. I need to watch a replay of how Dejon Reynolds made that catch. An incredible grab for a huge touchdown, obviously. But, that was his first target. And this was a big topic of conversation after the game. Trying to put the lid back on the whiskey. Don't want to end up spilling that. There was a big topic of conversation after the game, talking to the players and Pat Narduzzi about Dejon Reynolds, a guy who's played a decent number of snaps each of the first 3 games, but hadn't been targeted in the first 2 games. And he goes out and his first target, his only target, he makes a high degree of difficulty catch, a huge catch for a 40-yard touchdown to get Pitt within 3. That probably drew the biggest exclamations, like I say, in the press box, and I think probably throughout the stadium. People couldn't believe that Dejon Reynolds made that catch. That was it was unbelievable. Now, you guys in the super chats, you're making me say bad words here. But I always say it, hey, if you're a super chatter, we will read your comment or answer your question. So Patrick McKinney says, LFG, Big D Eli. Look, there's no, there are other ways to put it than that, but there's no other way to put it. Like, Eli Holstein carried this team today on those 2 touchdown drives. He had his share of misses. I think their first drive, when they ended up with a field goal, could have been a touchdown. Or their first scoring drive, the one that ended with a field goal. Raphael Williams isn't able to get his feet in bounds, but Eli Holstein should have thrown that pass much sooner. It was open. It was wide open. Williams went in motion. They faked a pitch to Desmond Reed. And because Williams went in motion, I kind of had an eye on him. And also, it was sort of my perspective. It was kind of, it was right where the fake pitch, I was like looking right at it. And I'm like, there's Williams. He's right there. And Holstein just waited too long, and so he ends up hesitating. He finally throws it to Williams, but Williams can't catch it in bounds because he's already run too far. And this was a big topic throughout the week. Talked about this a lot, about trust, about Eli Holstein trusting his teammates, trusting the offense, trusting the system and the scheme and the game plan and all of those things. And Holstein said it today. He said early in the game he wasn't trusting his teammates. He's got to trust that the receivers will be there. And I think he's right. And I think a lot of times today he was waiting too long on his throws, waiting for guys to be open instead of anticipating them being open. I think the scheme works. Look, I'm sure we have a lot to say about Cade Bell and some of his play calls today. After pretty outstanding first 2 games, Bell, I think, had some curious decisions that we can all laugh about because they won the game, but we would certainly not be laughing about if they had lost. But Bell certainly had some interesting decisions today, but they were still getting guys open. Like, guys were still getting open. They were good plays. They were well-run routes. Eli Holstein's got to anticipate it. Eli Holstein has to trust that his teammates will be there. And by his own admission, he wasn't trusting that they would be there. And I think that's big. I think that's an important admission for him. But, you get it now. Cade Bell said you guys talked about this after the Cincinnati game. You're now admitting it yourself after the West Virginia game. Going forward, you need to make those plays. You need to anticipate and trust your receivers, trust your teammates, and get them the ball. Trust the protection, which maybe was a little bit tougher today than it has been in previous weeks. But trust your receivers to be available and get those guys the ball. That's where he really needs to improve. But like, damn if he hasn't come through 2 weeks in a row at the end to make big time plays and lead this team to victory. ZC717 as the super chatter says, unbelievable. This team is something. They definitely have flaws, the offensive line, but the heart is something else. We saw a freshman grow up. Bragging rights. Yeah, a lot packed in there. This team, I'll say this, I don't think any new issues presented themselves or unveiled themselves today. The offensive line to a certain extent. I think they were better in previous weeks. I think they did not have a great week this week. Eli Holstein was sacked, I think, 5 times was the final total. He complained about it after the game, not about getting sacked, but he complained about how sacks come off of rushing yardage in college football. He was mad about that. He said he should have about 88 rushing yards, if not for the 29 yards he lost on sacks. But see, the problem with that, because college football counts sacks against your rushing total. The problem is, and what I've always said, because I've heard this complaint before, they shouldn't take it off of rushing total. But like the reality is, let's say Eli Holstein was about to be sacked, shakes the tackle and runs. Well, those yards would count in his rushing yardage, right? So if we're going to count it if you get away from the sack, then we probably should count it when you get sacked. West Virginia had 5 sacks for 29 yards. Pitt had 2 sacks for 12 yards. So they were definitely getting to Eli Holstein more than Kent State and Cincinnati did. And I think that was a new challenge for him to have to deal with. Last week, I think the new challenge was seeing Cincinnati's 3-high look, dropping 8 a lot, only rushing 3 guys. This week, he had the challenge of facing pressure. And I think the right side of Pitt's offensive line had some issues, particularly there was one of maybe the last drive before they started scoring. No, maybe it was a drive before that. It was a drive maybe it was the last drive of the third quarter. It was Pitt's last drive of the third quarter. They hand it off to Desmond Reed twice. He gets 3 and 12, so they got a first down at the 40, and then Holstein gets sacked for a 7-yard loss, throws incomplete on a deeper pass to Raphael Williams, and then gets sacked on third down for an 8-yard loss. And both of those seem to come from the right side of the offensive line. That's a bit of an issue. And so I think the offensive line played better in the first 2 games. I think there were still question marks about that group, but on the whole, there wasn't a lot in this game that I looked at it and I thought, well, that's a new issue. Well, that's a big concern. Now that's something new to worry about. The offensive line was always going to be something I was a little bit wary of, but I needed to, this game ended up being, I think, their worst game. They didn't run block very well. Desmond Reed was largely stymied in this game, at least in the rushing attack. He ended up with 26 yards on 11 carries. He had 12 lost yards, which he really didn't have hardly any yards lost, any tackles behind the line of scrimmage in the first 2 games. Here he did. He did catch 4 passes for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns, so can't say it was an altogether unproductive day at the office for Desmond Reed. A little bit of a fall from his 100-100 game last week to go for 50 and 26, but it's hard to argue when a guy scores 2 touchdowns, right? Overall, good game. But no, I mean, I think some of the issues that we were worried about or we've talked about with this team, the defensive line is an issue. The run defense is a bit of an issue, particularly against good running teams with good backs like West Virginia and Cincinnati. Some of the youth on defense and the inexperience still kind of showing itself at different times, which I think was part of what we saw today and to some extent last week with Cincinnati. And so, those issues are not new. We've sort of seen bits of them over all 3 of the first 3 games. And so no new vulnerabilities presented themselves, but the same ones are still there, and they have to keep working at those things, and they have to keep improving. So yeah, this team has its flaws, but for whatever reason, and somehow in the fourth quarter, they come alive. And it was both sides of the ball. I think West Virginia did go down and score in the fourth quarter. Yeah, their final touchdown drive was in the fourth quarter. Just trying to look. I mean, they had a roughing penalty, which helped move the ball from West Virginia territory into Pitt territory. They gave up a fourth down conversion, kind of like 2 drives in a row. They gave up a fourth down conversion on basically the same play, a 7-yard pass to number 7 on like an out pattern. And then obviously they have the touchdown catch, a great catch for a 28-yard touchdown to go up 10 points with 5 minutes to go. And look, I didn't think they were going to come back. When West Virginia went up 10 with 4:55 left on the clock, I thought, well, we're going to have our first post-game show after a loss tonight. And that's it. I didn't see any of it coming. But then Eli Holstein scrambled for 34 yards on 2 carries. I said, might be a little something here. Let's see the next super chatter here. Got a lot of them rolling in. Eric Bruno says, fitting quote, after this win over West Virginia, I think a man working outdoors feels more like a man if he can have a bottle of suds. Andy Dufresne. Yeah. Look, I'm enjoying right now, in addition to our Backshore Apparel shot of the game, I'm enjoying this nice chaser of the hop water from Voodoo Brewing. I talked about this before. This is NA. We'll get to the A in a second, but I like the NA as a chaser. It's really refreshing. I have to. It's hoppy. It's hoppy, non-alcoholic. It's gluten-free. It's from Voodoo Brewing, who makes a lot of great beers, including some Pitt-themed stuff. But this is a non-alcoholic. It's hop-infused water, and it's really refreshing. It's really crisp, and it's something I probably could drink in the middle of the afternoon. But you have to get your head around the fact that you're not drinking beer, even though it's hoppy. It's a hoppy drink, but it's not beer. It's really refreshing. It's nice after a long day at the stadium. It was a really hot day, and certainly goes well chasing the whiskey. So go check this out. If you're getting into the NA craze, this is the way to go. Voodoo Brewing's hop water. And certainly enjoying that, Erica, as you said, after a long day at the stadium. Glovebox23 is a super chatter, says, no analysis needed, just a gutsy effort. Great win. Well, maybe, but we're still going to spend an hour or 2 talking about it and doing analysis on this game. So, but I appreciate you being a super chatter, and I hope you stay tuned for the whole show, even though we are going to have analysis. Brock is the super chatter, says, remember when everyone was asking about Dejon Reynolds? Well, what a catch by him to keep the Panthers alive. Do you have any reactions from recruits? Well, Brock, I'm sending a lot of text messages and direct messages, getting a lot of responses back, but I also want to come here and hang out and talk to you. So we'll have that stuff posted. We'll get some. We already got some in. I mean, obviously they were all excited. Great atmosphere, great environment, great comeback. Very exciting for the home team to pull that off. And we'll post them as we get them. But we'll also probably that process will stretch until tomorrow morning. Send a lot of texts and DMs right after the game. When we get done with this live show, whether it's 11 or 11:30, I'm probably not going to be texting high school kids. Just going to hold off on that. But suffice to say, it was a pretty good experience for those guys. John McDonald is a super chatter. Just shouting out a super chat. If you had a comment, John, I apologize if I apologize if I missed that. But I see your super chat. I don't know where your comment is. So I apologize. I'll try and keep an eye out for it. Oh, here. It says, when is the last time we ran for less than 20 yards, not counting quarterback rushing? I don't know. Is that what they ended up with today? Net rushing yards, 78. Yeah, Holstein had 59. So right under it, 19 yards. I don't know. That's a good question. We have to go back and look at the record books of lowest rushing totals in a game. But, there was a lot that went into that. And Pat Narduzzi talked about time of possession in the third quarter and how they lost time of possession in the third quarter. Let me look up the exact stat on that, because there actually is something I want to say about that. How they lost their possession in the time of possession in the third quarter. Pitt had 3 minutes and 45 seconds of possession in the third quarter. But you think about what happened in the third quarter, right? So Pitt gets the ball to start the third quarter. And they go 3 and out. West Virginia does their fake punt thing, which wasn't a fake punt at all. They just snapped the ball for a punt and realized all of the Pitt players, and I think Pat Narduzzi said there were only 10 guys on the field to begin with, so that play was doomed from the start. But all the Pitt players turned and just ran back to start setting up the return, and the West Virginia punter was like, okay, I am just going to go run and get a first down. It was only 4th and 3, so okay. And he gets the first down. So their drive's extended. They end up going 3 and out. But when they punt, that's when Maverick Grazio blocks the punt. Brandon George recovers it and returns it for a touchdown. Now that drive is extended. I mean, that drive is not extended, but West Virginia is now getting another drive. So when you look at like the actual drives here, where's West Virginia? Their first drive of the third quarter, which was the one that was extended by the fake punt, that was 5:09, and then they get the ball right back because Pitt scored on the block punt, and they drive down. It takes 3 minutes and 28 seconds. So it's basically 8 minutes and 37 seconds of possession is what they had there. And when Pitt got the ball back, they got one first down, and then they had to punt. And so, a lot of that time, we talk about how Pitt only had 4 yards of offense prior to like the final 5 minutes or so. Part of that is because they didn't have the ball. Well, it wasn't prior to the final 5 minutes. It was before. Let's see what it ended up being. Oh yeah, 6 minus 3. So yeah, prior to those 2 touchdown drives, they had 4 yards of offense total in the second half. And part of it was because they just didn't have the ball, which the fake punt and then the block punt recovered for a touchdown will do that. You're not going to have much possession, so you're not going to end up with much yardage. So they were on the field a lot. West Virginia offense was on the field a lot. Pitt's defense was not on the field very much, and you end up with not a lot of opportunities to run the ball, and you end up with not a lot of opportunities to run offense at all, which is ultimately what happened. That's what was sort of surprising. Eli Holstein still ended up with 301 yards. He didn't have much to speak of prior to that. Let's see. David Greenwald is a super chatter, says, have an extra shot since we won. Eli showed his moxie in his fight. Cade Bell's offense maybe have some hope, and the defense showed up when it needed to. Yeah, I was thinking this might be a double shot show. It's only 10:35. We've been at this for, how long has this been going? 35 minutes or so? I don't need to necessarily do the second shot yet, but we'll probably have a second shot. Let's see here. Anthony Tennyson, super chatter, just with a thumbs up. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Oh, and he hits it again. Anthony, if you've got comments, man, I didn't see them. I have to look through. So this is what's hard. When you are a super chatter, post your comment with your chat when you click the super chatter. Okay, we really appreciate that. That makes it easy for me to see what you want to say. But Anthony, I'll try and scroll through and see what's going on. See what you have to say. M Prager 30 says, "Love the live thoughts on the cousin effort chance." I didn't hear that, so I'll have to take your word for that. Joshua Brown is a super chatter, says, shout out to my boy Mike Perot, big Pitt fan getting married this weekend, and Evelyn Gitter, who is our good luck charm in her first Brawl victory. Hey, look, if you guys want to do if you want to use the super chat as like a old style Casey Kasem request and dedication, I'm not going to sing any songs. I'm not going to play any songs. But if you want to do that, yeah, I can. If you want to use the super chat function to get me to give your people a shout out, I will do that. All right. But Josh, hey, congratulations to Mike, on getting married this week, and hopefully you're able to catch some of the game. Will Z's the super chatter, says, so glad I was wrong about this game and this season. Enjoy another shot on me, Mr. Peak. Hail to Pitt, and hail to Pitt's new legend, WVU's Baba Yaga, Eli Holstein. Yeah, if you guys didn't see, Eli Holstein did a video with Oakland Originals, the Alliance 412 production, did a podcast. Trey Tipton hosted it. It was really good. You should definitely go check it out. And he talks about being like a John Wick reference. That aren't you scared of the boogeyman? Like, no, this is the guy. This is the guy who attacks the boogeyman. Or this is the guy who kills the boogeyman. And he sees himself. He sees Eli Holstein said he sees the defense as the boogeyman, and he's the guy who goes and kills the boogeyman. It was a pretty good quote. And I just remember thinking, like, boy, you need to back it up this weekend with West Virginia, because they released that video I think yesterday or Thursday. And I say, boy, you're talking a big game. You better go back it up and beat West Virginia. Like, Eli Holstein just made himself legendary, as did Dejon Reynolds, as did Derek Davis. Made themselves legendary for those plays because they did it against West Virginia. The 13-9 game, when you go back and look, and there was a thread about this on the message boards, like Jameel Brady. Okay, if you watch the 13-9 game, Jameel Brady had a huge game. Played a crucial role in that game, an important role on the defense, had a big hand in slowing down and shutting down West Virginia's offense. We only remember Jameel Brady because of that game. Tommy Duhart had a big play in that game. Like, Dave Brightis is the punter who ran out of the back of the end zone. We only remember these things because it happened in the backyard brawl. It's not that we don't remember big plays in other games. I mean, there's all kinds of things, memories you could jog up over the years of the biggest wins and who made the biggest plays. Jeremiah Taleni had a huge stop on, I think, the 4th down play at Clemson in 2016. Like, you remember these plays. Jamar Parrish had a big catch in that game. These big games, you remember big plays. Like, it's not unique, but I think we remember more of them because when they happen against the rival. You remember Ryan Lewis getting the game-winning interception against Penn State, right? We remember these plays that happen against the rival. MJ Devonshire will forever be a Pitt legend because he beat West Virginia. He made the game-winning play to beat West Virginia. Eli Holstein, Dejon Reynolds, Derek Davis, Brandon George with a punt block return. Maverick Grazio will be remembered. He could transfer out of here tomorrow, and he will be remembered because he blocked a punt in the 2024 backyard brawl. Really, we will remember these guys. We will remember these stories because when you do it on this stage and you do it in this kind of game against that team, a team and you hate, a team that, a game where you're going to either have or lose bragging rights for the whole year, you remember the players who made those plays. And so, like, Eli Holstein, again, like I said, huge comeback against Cincinnati last week. Huge. And he did it on the road, and he came back from being down 21 as opposed to being down 10. And that was a big comeback. And it said a lot about him, and it showed a lot about who he is and what he could possibly do and all that. But like I said at the beginning of the show, in 10 years, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to be talking about, oh, remember when he came back from down 21 at Cincinnati? We might mention that, but it will always be followed up by, yeah, that was the week before the brawl. That was the week before he went out there in the final 4 minutes and 55 seconds and put this team on his back for 2 drives to win. Like, this is the kind of game that makes legend. You know what I mean? That makes the heroes that live forever in your memories as a Pitt fan. And West Virginia has them too. West Virginia has those memories too from the games like last year's game or 2011 or 2012, 2009, 2010. That was a rough stretch there. When Pitt finally got off the schneid, Dave Wanstead got off the schneid against West Virginia and beat him in 07 and 08, and then lost to him in 09 and 010. Todd Graham lost to him in 11. I guess they didn't play in 12. 11 was the last game. So they lost 3 in a row, won in 22, lost in 23, and now get this win today. Let's see. Super chatters here. JL11 says Pitt won because they had the more creative and talented quarterback. Look, I don't know, man. Garrett Green's pretty good. Like, Garrett Green is a really good, crafty runner. Eli Holstein's a better passer, And maybe that's the difference. Maybe that was the separation point, is what he was able to do throwing. But Garrett Green could punish you with his legs. As we saw, he made play after play, particularly late in the game, right? Like the touchdown that put West Virginia up 34-24. Hold on, let me get my notes. No, Green had a touchdown pass there. He didn't scramble on that drive. Did he have some scrambles? He had a run on the drive before that. Got the late hit penalty on Brandon George. Ran for 12 yards on that drive. Garrett Green can make some things happen. Even the touchdown drive that tied the game at 24-24. He had some runs. He had a 15-yard run on first down there. He made some nice plays in there. So he's good. Eli Holstein's better. Let's see. Jason Weinberg's the super chatter. And Jason's super chat is lyrics to Sweet Caroline. Am I supposed to sing that, Jason? Is that why you're putting that on there? You know what? I'll tell you what we'll do. Okay? Because it's the Brawl. It's a Saturday night. It's a little bit later than usual. I think this is a two-shot game. Backshore Apparel, double shot of the game. And I'll tell you what, we're going to double shot on this one. Okay? Double shot and shout out to the guy who might be, if he's not the top player on this team right now, he's no worse than top 3. And I'm pretty sure he's not number 3. Kyle Lewis. Okay? Kyle Lewis. 13 tackles today. The game-sealing interception. Never came. He came off the field for like one snap because he got hurt. Kyle Lewis is playing really, really well. Had a big tackle, had a couple big tackles, 13 total, right? So the Backshore Apparel double shot of the game is going to go to Kyle Lewis on that side of the ball. And there's a lot of guys who deserve it on that side of the ball. Donovan McMillan had the kind of game you would expect him to have, 13 tackles. Brandon George, 9 tackles. The recovery, the punt block touchdown. Rasheem Biles had 12 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. Look, I could give the Backshore double shot to any of the linebackers, but I'm going to go with Kyle Lewis. Not the least of which because I hyped him up a lot this offseason. All right. And as someone who took a lot of grief, deservedly so, for overhyping the outside linebackers last year, I am going to savor every moment that those outside linebackers play well this year. And it's led by Kyle Lewis, a guy who, by Pat Narduzzi's own admission on Thursday, they can't afford to take off the field. So, Kyle Lewis, the Backshore Apparel double shot of the game. We'll chase that one too. But to Jason's super chat. Hands. Touching hands. Reaching out. Touching me. Touching you. I did it. That's as good as you're going to get. That's the closest you can get on it. Scott Lynch is a super chatter. Says, hail to Pitt. Hail to the Panther-Lair. This team has some flaws, but you can't say they are not fun to watch. Yeah, it would probably be cool, and I think it would probably be for everyone's best interest health-wise if they could go out and start games a little bit faster than they have the last two. Go out and play with that sort of reckless abandon that they've had in the final fourth quarter, they've had in the fourth quarter of the last 2 games, and do that from the start, and then maybe you wouldn't have to have these cardiac moments late in the game. But the fact that they've done this 2 games in a row, Eli Holstein, let's see if I can find it. I think in the last 2 games, in the fourth quarters, I think he's like 15 of 17 for 289 and 3 touchdowns. He scored, obviously, on the final 2 drives of this game. Scored touchdowns on the final 3 drives of the Cincinnati game. Like, when you see that, Okay? When you see that you've got a quarterback who, when your back is really up against the wall and you really have no other option, it's either like win or lose. Like, and it's going to be decided on what you do right here. You have a quarterback who can go out and make those plays. It kind of means you're never really out of a game. Now, I mean, if you fall down, I was going to say, well, if you fall down by like 3 touchdowns, but they fell down by 3 touchdowns. They were down by 3 touchdowns last week, and they still came back and won. Now, you don't want to go to that well too many times. There's only so many times you can pull yourself out of a hole. If you dig yourself a hole, there's only so many times you can, get out of it. But you've seen that he can do it. And you've seen that they can do it. Because it's not just about the offense. Because in each of these situations, the defense stepped up as well. The defense got them the ball back at Cincinnati multiple times, even if Scott Satterfield called some ill-advised pass plays. And the defense got them the ball back in this game. They had Garrett, West Virginia had Garrett Green drop back to pass on 3rd and 6 after Pitt made it 34-31, but they also stopped the first 2 carries. On 1st down and 2nd down, West Virginia handed the ball to C.J. Donaldson, and Pitt stopped him for 1-yard gain and a 3-yard gain. And the reality is, like, you might look at it and say, oh, well, they knew they were handing off. It was an obvious situation, but you knew West Virginia was handing off the whole game. It was an obvious situation the whole game, and Pitt still didn't do a great job stopping the run. West Virginia rushed for... Now, they only finished with 188 rushing yards. Donaldson had 79 yards, on 19 carries, which is pretty pedestrian for him against Pitt. He was averaging almost 10 yards per carry against Pitt over the last 2 seasons. So holding him to only 4.2 yards per carry, that's kind of like a win. But Pitt's defense had to step up and make those tackles. They weren't doing a great job tackling C.J. Donaldson. Or Jaheim White, for that matter. But they made the tackle for a 1-yard gain on 1st down, a 3-yard gain on 2nd down, called the timeout, and on 3rd and 6, Garrett Green drops back to pass, and Pitt gets the sack to force the punt. So the defense stepped up there as well. So it's not just Eli Holstein. It's not just the offense. The defense played a big part in it, but it also is Eli Holstein as the offense. I mean, that's what won this game. And so seeing him do it, and seeing him do it 2 weeks in a row, seeing him do it on 5 drives, 5 need-to-win drives where you were in your biggest hole of the game, down 21 last week, down 10 this week, and to rattle off consecutive scores, 3 last week and 2 this week, to win the game, it gives you a feeling that you're never really out of a game. And that, confidence can be a scary thing. Confidence can be a scary thing for the opponent. You get a confident team, a team that really just believes it's going to win, and they all believe they're going to win, but or they all say they all believe they're going to win, but they're human. Just like you and I were sitting there looking at it and saying, down 21 on the road, they're screwed. Down 10, 4:55 left to go, they're screwed. And I think there were times in the past, and it's not an attack on anyone's character or anything like that, but there are times in the past where the players on the sidelines are human. And they're like, yeah, probably not going to come back from this. I'm going to go out, I'm going to try really hard, but we're probably not going to go back from this. But in the last 2 weeks, and Pat Narduzzi said it last week, he said it on Monday, that when he looked on the sidelines at Cincinnati, he saw more confidence than he's ever seen. Like he said that the players really believed they were going to do it. And he said that hasn't always been the case. And again, I don't think it's a character assassination thing or anything like that. I think it's just players being sort of realistic, just like you and I would be like realistic. Like, no, they're not coming back from down 21. No, they're not coming back from down 10. But the players believed they were going to. The defense went out there after Pitt scored a touchdown to cut the lead to 3. The defense went out there believing we're going to get a 3 and out and get the ball back. And when we do, our offense is going to go out and do it. And that's what they believed last week too. And when it keeps happening, and you keep pulling it off, I don't think it leads to like a complacency, like, it's no big deal. We'll eventually figure it out. We'll win. No problem. But I think it leads to a certain confidence. They're like, listen, if we go out and do our job here, offense, if we go out and score to make it a 3-point game, the defense is giving the ball right back to us. And defense, if we go out and get a 3 and out here, the offense is going to go down and score a touchdown and win this game. There's confidence building for this team. And they have reasons to believe in each other. Like the linebackers believe in Eli Holstein. And Eli Holstein believes in the linebackers. You get results like you got today, which they've now gotten 2 weeks in a row. Man, we got so many super chats. You guys are awesome. John Waffle says, good win, but why do we give the visiting team band good seats? We should move them to the top so our team doesn't get distracted. I hope we don't have to deal with any more visiting team bands this year. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. Well, first of all, I don't know what other teams might travel their bands. I don't know if the ACC has rules about where you have to put. Well, I mean, the ACC rules wouldn't matter here. I don't know why Pitt doesn't put the band up in the upper section. I feel like when you go to Notre Dame, I feel like they send you up to the upper deck if your band travels. A lot of teams don't travel their bands. There was a decent amount of West Virginia crowd noise. I'll tell you. So we have a unique. I shouldn't say unique. It's like half the stadium has the same perspective we do from the press box. But, our perspective from the press box, we're looking at the visiting sidelines. And sometimes I think that affects our perception of attendance. Because the visiting sidelines were not full. Now, I've sat on that sideline. I took my kids to a Steelers preseason game last summer. And it was like sort of the same thing. It was like a 3:30 game or something. And we were up. We were up in like the upper deck. And when the sun cleared, as it was setting, I mean, it was punishing, to the point where we're like, we got to move. We got to move. We got to leave. We can't sit here and have this sun. And so I think that was a big part of it today. I think it was a late arriving crowd because apparently there were issues with scanning tickets coming in through the gates. But I think also the sun was blasting on that side. So you didn't get a real, it didn't look like the place was as packed as it was 2 years ago for the prime time game. So that was probably part of it. I think the home sidelines were full. I know what I could see in front of me was full. And I think the upper deck above us was pretty jammed as well. But it didn't look as impressive as I was kind of hoping it to look. I was hoping it to be like you couldn't see an empty seat. But that didn't end up being the case. But I could hear the West Virginia fans. Cheering when West Virginia scored a touchdown, or when they went up 10, West Virginia fans were definitely vocal. Part of that was probably the Pitt fans were extra quiet. Certainly there were a lot more Pitt fans than West Virginia fans, but the West Virginia fans showed up. I felt like I saw them a lot too before the game. I feel like I saw a lot of West Virginia fans in the parking lot, a lot of like mixed groups walking together, Pitt fans and West Virginia fans walking together. I expect more of you people. Where's the animosity? Come on. Eric Bruno says, don't look now, but Georgia and Kentucky are in a 13-9 game in the fourth quarter. And this was a little bit ago that Eric sent that. Let's it's 13-12. Sorry, Eric. I missed your comment. Georgia's still winning 13-12, but I missed your comment. Kentucky must have kicked a field goal after that. Real quick glance, just because now I have the football scores up. Quick glance around the ACC. Ole Miss killed Wake Forest 40-6. Boston College hung in there with Missouri on the road. Number 6 Missouri beat Boston College 27-21. It was pretty close. That game was pretty interesting. I mean, 17-14 for a decent portion in the third quarter. Boston College first loss of the season. They'll drop out of the top 25, but there's no shame in losing at the number 6 team in the country and losing to them by 6 points. Miami crushed Ball State 62-0. Florida State lost to Memphis. And look, I've been ragging on DJU for long enough. I don't need to do it again here, but yeah, what a terrible decision that was. NC State beat Louisiana Tech 30-20. Another one of the ACC's preseason darlings, NC State. They beat Louisiana Tech by 10 points at home, and actually it was tied 20-20 after 3 quarters. So maybe NC State is not the darling we thought they were. Georgia Tech beat the crap out of VMI 59-7. Duke beat UConn 26-21 at home. Not exactly an inspiring win there. North Carolina beat NC Central 45-10. And Virginia Tech went on the road and beat Old Dominion by 20, 37-17. Games in progress. Maryland at Virginia. Maryland's beating Virginia 20-13 in the fourth quarter, about 8 minutes to go there. And Cal and San Diego State just got started, probably 10:30 or something like that. It's no score in that one. So, we were close on a 13-9 game there with Georgia and Kentucky, but Kentucky kicked a field goal. John McDonald, Super Chatter, says Pete Gonzalez can't retire his number now. Eli, and happy birthday, Aaron. So like I said, we will do the requests and dedications like we're Casey Kasem on America's Top 40, but happy birthday, Aaron. I'll drink to that. Mark Thurkel is a Super Chatter. If you have... he doesn't have a comment included. Oh, there it is. Mark's got a comment. It says, this is Mark's wife. Sorry late to the game, but why did Pitt's offense not plan for Dez to be shut down? Why not more screens? I think they tried a few screens. Didn't get a lot of success. Sometimes they would get 4 or 5 yards out of it, which I think if you get 4 yards out of a screen, 5 yards out of a screen, that's a win. Even 3 yards, maybe. I think when you look at screen passes, you have to think of them as running plays. What's the success for a running play? A 4-yard run on first down is a good play. So if you can get 4 yards out of a screen pass on first down, that's a good play. It'll be interesting to see what the coaches say next week about why and how West Virginia was able to contain Desmond Reed as much as they were. Late in the game, Reed left the game. Pitt's touchdown drive. Let me see exactly when he went out. West Virginia went up 27-24. Pitt went 3 and out. Desmond Reed was on that drive. West Virginia went up 34-24. The next drive, Desmond Reed was not out there. He played, I think, on the final play. On the 2nd and 30 play, the touchdown play, I think Desmond Reed was on the field. The rest of the drive was Derek Davis. And then when Pitt came out for the game-winning drive, obviously Derek Davis was the running back out there. Pat Narduzzi said he made some good pickups in pass protection, so good job by Derek Davis. 1 carry, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. Can't argue with that stat line. Oh, no. Oh, damn it. He had 2 carries for 3 yards. It was such a better stat line when he had 1 for 1 for 1. 2 carries, 3 yards, 1 touchdown. Man. I don't know when he had that other carry. It doesn't matter. That's too bad. I thought that was going to be such a great stat line. 1-1-1, Instead it's 2-3-1. Oh, well. Let's see. Scrolling through here. Daniel Glennon is a Super Chatter. Awesome game in H2P. For Pitt to truly hit the next level, they need to play better at the line of scrimmage. What do they need to do to take that next step? One of the replies, Charlie Solo Z says, Daniel, we need better players. Yeah. Right. I mean, you need better linemen, or you need guys to play better or be more experienced, or I don't, yeah, if you want to be better at a certain position, you need to be better. Now, that might mean recruiting better, coaching better, developing better, or transfer portaling better. I'll be interested to see, speaking of the transfer portal, after a game where, Pitt was really led down the field by a transfer, where the touchdown to cut the lead to 3 points was caught by a transfer, where the game-winning touchdown was scored by a transfer. I'm curious how many Pitt fans walked out of that game and said, I'm going to contribute to NIL. And I don't want to make this a whole NIL conversation, but were you motivated by that? I stopped over at the Alliance 412 tailgate before the game. I didn't have any cold ones before the game. It's a work environment. So we gotta keep it sober. But I stopped over there, and it seemed like they had a good crowd. But like, I wonder if a game like this, and a start to the season like this, inspires people to be more, to participate more in donating to the collective, donating to Alliance 412, because I mean there is a direct line you can draw between the success they have and the players they have. And there's a direct line you can draw between the players they have and the NIL funds they're able to raise. So I wonder, leading tackler in the game, transfer. Leading quarterback, transfer. Running back, lead running back, game-winning touchdown scoring running back, both transfers. Even like Kanate Mumfield, leading receiver for Pitt. Game-leading receiver. Did game-high 6 catches. Transfer. This is part of the game, right? Is bringing in transfers being a part of your team and being major significant contributors. And how do you get transfers? NIL is a big part of it. So I wonder, if Alliance 412 got a little bit of a boost after this game. Jim Nething says, "Hail to Pitt, awesome win." Yeah, I think this is going to be. There are always games that you'll remember, and this is something we've kind of talked about throughout the night, and throughout this show. That you get these legendary games that live in your memory, that you can always reference back to, and it might be you referenced by the score, or you might be like, oh, you remember that game, you reference it one way or another, and I think. I mean, this game jumps up there in the list, and there's a lot of legendary backyard brawls. There's a lot of legendary games against West Virginia that went for Pitt and against Pitt, just like there are with Penn State and there are with Notre Dame. This one, I think, immediately puts itself right up there near the top of the list. An epic comeback. And I think, like... Actually, no. I was going to say that, part of it will be based on what happens the rest of the season, whether, if they go on and have a good year, this year will really, you'll remember this game a lot, and it'll have, wow, that was really a springboard to the rest of the year. But I actually think this game happens in a vacuum. Because I don't think the West Virginia game in 2022 was a springboard to the rest of the season. I mean, after that, later that year, a few weeks later, they lost to a Georgia Tech team that fired its head coach 4 days earlier. And then they lost to Louisville and North Carolina. They lost 3 out of 4 games in the month of October after beating West Virginia. So, like, what did that springboard? That West Virginia game didn't springboard them into the 9-4 season. 9-4 season came because their defense clamped down on opponents in the all 4 games in November. And Nick Patty decided to tuck the ball and run for a first down in the Sun Bowl against UCLA. That's how they got to be 9-4, not necessarily because of a springboard from the West Virginia game. Similarly, last year, it's not like they lost the West Virginia game and that tanked their season. Their season was tanked long before the West Virginia game. Their season was tanked when they decided to hitch their wagons to Phil Dracovic. Their season was tanked when they put Frank Cignetti in charge of making the decisions on those quarterbacks. So this game, I truly think it happens in a vacuum. I don't know what impact this game will have on the rest of the season. I don't think it matters. The impact this game will have on the rest of the season is that Eli Holstein has now, for 2 weeks in a row, led a fourth quarter comeback from a double-digit deficit. That's the impact of this game. It's not some kind of springboard or this or that. But because it exists in this vacuum, we'll be able to always reference it as one of those sort of classic, legendary backyard brawls. Oh, remember when they came back from being down 10 in the final 5 minutes of this game? Crazy. Remember Eli Holstein marched down the field with those guys? And there's something we haven't talked about. And I almost don't think we should talk about it, but we will. Pitt's now 3-0. First time 3-0 since 2020. How about that? If they win next week, they'll be 4-0 for the first time since 2000. But more to the point, and I almost hesitate to bring this up because I know what I'm doing by saying it. But if they win next week, they beat Youngstown State, They will have an undefeated non-conference record for the first time ever. Asterisk. Not counting 2020 because that doesn't count. They only played one game, and it was Austin Peay. For the first time since joining a conference back in the early 1990s when they joined the Big East, Pitt has a chance to go undefeated in the non-conference. They've never done it. And I don't want to dismiss Youngstown State, who lost to who'd they lose to? They lost to Duquesne. They lost to Duquesne today. And I don't want to dismiss Youngstown State. But this game felt like the final hurdle. These two games, Cincinnati and West Virginia, were the hurdles to get to that undefeated non-conference record. I was leaning toward West Virginia winning this game almost exclusively because of the historical precedent of never going undefeated in the non-conference. Really. I kept going back and forth. I'm like, I just don't think West Virginia is going to be able to consistently stop Pitt. I don't think Pitt will really be able to consistently stop West Virginia's run game, but I think Pitt's offense will be able to score enough that they can, kind of control the game. I think but they've never gone undefeated in the non-conference. And so I think West Virginia is probably going to win this. That was really how I was leaning. But now they won this game. History could be made next weekend. And I don't mean to jinx it because, look, if we start talking about that's it, Pitt's really going to have their first undefeated record in non-conference play, inevitably we'll feel like we're tempting fate, right? And possibly jinxing it. But I mean, they realistically should. And then if you do that, you get an off week, then you dive into ACC play. I'm guessing they won't be ranked coming out of this game. I don't think 3-0 will get them ranked, even though they beat two power conference teams. They beat two Big 12 teams. I don't think it'll get them ranked. And I don't think Youngstown State will get them ranked, but I think if they can beat North Carolina, they'll definitely jump in there. If they get to 5-0, I think they'll be in there. They'll probably receive votes at 3-0. They'll probably receive more votes at 4-0. But I think it's going to take getting that fifth win, going 5-0, beating North Carolina to actually crack into the top 25. And what time is it now? It's 11:09. So about 5 hours ago, a little after 6, if I had this conversation about what it would take for Pitt to be ranked, you'd be like, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? They're about to be 2-1. They look terrible. But then they bounced back and came up with one of an epic comeback, one of the, a legendary comeback win in a series that's, a series that's full of them. A lot of people are saying don't say it, stop saying it, stop talking about having a non-conference undefeated record. Sorry. Charlie Solo Z is a super chatter, says, didn't think the defensive game plan was great today. Played to Garrett Green's strengths. He's not a great passer. Should have kept him in the pocket. Yeah, back and forth. I think to a certain extent, I think they were willing to keep their base defense on the field more on third down. Some of that was due to down and distance, but some of that, it just sort of felt like they were keeping, as opposed to going to that Delta defensive package. Even though I think the first time they went to the Delta, Cruz Brookins had an interception. I have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure that was the first time the Delta is their third down defensive package when they have 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and they bring an extra DB. This year it's Cruz Brookins is the extra DB. They've used this as their third down package ever since Pat Narduzzi arrived. They like having the 3 down linemen, the 3 linebackers, and the 5 DBs, usually with the extra DB being a safety, because they like to blitz out of it. They feel like they can show that they're going to rush as many as 7. And sometimes they'll show 7 and rush 3. Sometimes they'll show 3 and rush 7. And it's hard to get a read on what they're doing. So they like to do it. But I think they held off situations where with other teams they might have used the Delta defensive package on a third down, a certain third down, maybe a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. They stuck with their base defense, and they got respect for West Virginia's running game. Now, with Green, sometimes their blitz is missed. And then their blitzes went in a certain way that allowed Green to find running lanes, particularly up the middle. Pat Narduzzi talked about it after the game that there was one blitz where Green took off and got a big run. The linebacker took the wrong angle, went in the wrong gap, a little detail type of thing. I guess what I would say, in terms of the defensive game plan, I think they're going to blitz. They're an aggressive defense. They're always going to be an aggressive defense, and they're going to, that's not really going to change. They're going to keep trying to get after the quarterback, even if it's a running quarterback like this. I think they're going to say, I'll take my guys against you. I think we'll get to you before you can get away, and I think we'll keep you contained. I don't think they were going to play it safe and try and play a contained type of defense. I think they want to bring the heat. They want to bring the pressure. And whatever you want to say about Pat Narduzzi, and sometimes we talk about whether he's aggressive enough on offense, whether he goes for it enough on fourth down, or just in terms of aggressiveness. You can never say that he plays a passive defense. There might be times where maybe their corners play off and they end up giving up something, but more often than not, they're going to attack with this defense. They want to bring the fight to you. They want to try and dictate with defense. And I think, there's an inherent risk there that if you're trying to attack, you're trying to be aggressive, you're trying to take the fight and dictate and all that stuff, you're taking there's a risk, because it could blow up. I think Phil Bennett, Pitt's old defensive coordinator under Dave Wanstead, used to say, when you blitz, somebody's band is going to play, and you just want to make sure it's yours. And I always thought that was a great line. When you blitz, somebody's band is going to play, and that's a risk that Pat Narduzzi is willing to take. And more often than not, I think it tends to work out. Sometimes they pick up the blitz, and your corners are out there on an island, and they complete a pass against you. That's a risk that Pat Narduzzi is willing to take. And like I say, most of the time, I think it often works out for this defense. Let's see. It's might have gotten through all the super chatters, so maybe we can scroll back and see some of the other comments here. ZC717. I don't even know if you were the first comment, but I think it erased. I think we got so many comments on this live stream that I can't even go back to the beginning. ZC717 says, I will say, yes, West Virginia as a team racked up yards rushing, but I think Pitt did a good job of eliminating the big runs. CJ Donaldson only had 79 yards rushing. He had 100 the last 2 years. Yeah, Donaldson killed Pitt the last 2 years. They did a better job against him, but they were still able to, I feel like they were still able to make plays and move the chains and pick up big yards, big chunks in the run game, bigger than Pitt typically likes to give up. And that's not like, the coaches just want perfection all the time, and anytime you give up 2 yards, that's 2 more than you should be giving up. Nothing like that, but I feel like they did give up some bigger chunks than you would like to see them give up, and what they're accustomed to. But this is a good running team. And Donaldson is a good running back, and he's had a lot of success against Pitt. Jaheim White is a good running back. He's had, he hasn't had success against Pitt. He hasn't carried the ball against Pitt, but he had a good day today. Actually, he didn't have as good a day as I had thought. 13 carries for 46 yards, an average of 3.5 yards per carry, scored a touchdown. Anecdotally, looking back on the game, it sort of felt like they ran the ball a lot and ran it really well, but maybe it wasn't quite as drastic as I thought. Panther Vision says, I'm not kidding when I say this. Neil Brown was wearing almost exactly the same hat Rich Rod did at the post-game 13-9 press conference. I got to get one of those hats. I'll take your word for that. Robot Fox 1987. They definitely have some flaws, but this team has shown they can find ways to win. Absolutely. That's the biggest thing is 2 weeks in a row, you have to be at a point now where you can't count this team out. Just because 2 games in a row, they've come back. So the next time you're in a game and it's 5 minutes left to go and they're down 10 or down 2 touchdowns even, you're probably going to be yeah, they're probably going to lose. but they could still pull it out. I mean, they've done it 2 games in a row now. You know, it's not an accident. There's not a one-off anymore. David Murphy says, great game. Super excited about our skill players and toughness. Going to have to stop the run, but I'm really excited. Yeah, you know, shout out to the receivers overall. And Konate Mumfield, I don't think we could say enough good things about Konate Mumfield. He got open for a huge pass, 23-yard pass on the game-winning touchdown drive. You know, it was 1st and 10 at the 47. And he just found that spot in the zone, and Eli Holstein stepped up and made a great pass to him. It was an outstanding play. And Mumfield did that last week, and he did it this week. And I think he's showing that he's a pretty reliable target. You know, he's a guy that's going to be there for Holstein when he needs him. And he's going to be where he's supposed to be. He's going to make the catch. I really like what this year is becoming for Konate Mumfield. He had 6 catches for 76 yards today. I had the notes up, just what he had prior to this, coming into today. Just want to look up his stats real quick. 10 catches for 179. So he's now got 16 catches for 255 yards and 3 touchdowns through 3 games. That's great. Like, that's really good. Yeah, I mean, like, that's a really good performance for a, and, you know, really nice kid. You know, I mean, he's always struck me as, like, really, you know, really smart kid, really polite, and someone you kind of root for. And you know, when he came from Akron, you thought, you know, he was coming in to take over Jordan Addison's role. You know, that's why he came here, to be the next Jordan. Although he thought when he came here he was gonna play with Jordan Addison. Didn't exactly work out that way. But after 2 years of sort of being stuck in the wilderness of Frank Cignetti's offense, here he is, you know, having a great year and making big plays for this team. Super chatter here. Who jumped in? RJC Man says, cardiac cats are going to be special. So happy for our kids. Yeah, cardiac cats is probably going to be a good way to describe this team if they keep doing this. But who among us can survive if they keep doing this? Maybe they could just get a lead and play with a lead. This game on next Saturday should be one that they can, do that and have success and maybe get out on top of a team early, hold them down and extend the lead, rest some of the starters after a certain point, and get a comfortable win. But we'll see. All right, a couple other thoughts. Cade Bell, curious play calling. Flea flicker, don't do it again. Weird shovel pitch passes, don't do those again. Your offense works really well. Your quote-unquote normal offense, your basic offense, your regular offense, it works fine. You don't need to do that. Like, you don't need to do those things. Just keep running your offense. When it's 4th and 1 before the half, I'm good with you going for it. I'm fine. I know you get so there's 2 schools of thought when they have 4th and 1 at that point before the half. Where were they? They were no, maybe it wasn't. Where was it? It wasn't before the half. Yeah, I mean a little bit, about 2 minutes, minute and a half, whatever it is. 4th and 1 to the Pitt 49. I don't have a problem with going for it there. I think there's 2 schools of thought. One, you could say, look, just punt the ball, pin them back, get into halftime with a lead, a 17-14 lead. You get the ball to start the second half, go down and score a touchdown, you're up 10. Okay, I get that. That makes sense. West Virginia had their timeouts too, so it wasn't a guarantee you were going to stop them. They end up giving up a field goal anyway. But then there's another school of thought of you know what? You do get the ball in the second half to start the second half. So go for this now. You got a minute 27. You got some timeouts. Drive down there, score, because it was 17-14 at that point. get at minimum a field goal, so you're up 20-14, and then you have a chance to go up 27-14 in the, if you can score to start the second half. Or you go down and score a touchdown, and instead of being up 17-14, you go up 24-14 at halftime, and then maybe you can go down and score a touchdown on your first drive of the second half, and now you're up 31-14. I'm all about being aggressive. I think that's the way to go. If you want to say, I would have played it safe, I would have punted on that 4th and 1, okay. I think that makes sense too, given that you get the fact that you get the ball to start the second half. But I say go for it. I think going for it was the right call. It's what I would have done. I fully endorse that move. I just don't endorse doing some goofy stuff that you haven't done all game. I know you want to catch them off guard. You don't want them to see it and this kind of stuff. They'll never know it's coming or whatever. Run your offense. Your offense is good. Your offense, in the first half, Pitt had 222 yards of offense in the first half. You've got a 4th and 1. You've got a quarterback who can run, so you don't have to go under center and try and do a QB sneak or tush push or any of those kinds of things. You don't have to put Daniel Carter out there. You don't have to do any of those things. Line him with the shotgun, snap it, drop back, and either the throw's there or he scrambles. And you're probably going to get a first down. I think either a quick hitter to Gavin Bartholomew or Desmond Reed or one of those guys, or just run it. Yeah, like Eli Holstein, run it, and you'll probably get the first down. And then you got a chance. You still got, 80 seconds to at least get into field goal range with a timeout. They had at least one timeout, or potentially go down for a touchdown. So I like going for it on 4th down there. Just don't know if don't think you needed to run those trick plays. I don't think they've run a good trick play. I guess they had the play at Cincinnati when Kenny Johnson motioned into the backfield and ended up behind center, and they snapped it directly to him, and he ran for 4 yards. I think he got a first down with that play. So, that's fine. But for the most part, Cade Bell, your offense is good. You run good stuff. You don't need trick plays. You got a good quarterback, good receivers, good running back, good tight end. You can skip the trick plays. You don't need to bring those out. All right, let's see here. Scrolling through here. Oh, somebody asked. Yeah, it just asked about that. Who was that? I see this comment. Jeremy McIntyre says, "What the heck was that sequence of plays to end the drive before the half?" Yeah, that's and you're right. Was it even more than just? Yeah, I mean, they had a. What did they do? Did they have a penalty too? Yeah, they had the false start. Kanate Mumfield wasn't set. And then on 1st and 15, they tried this weird pitch back to Kenny Johnson that was almost intercepted. It was almost like a Shervasier Dennis, pick six against on a shovel pass against Clemson. It almost went that way, which would have certainly changed the course of this game. And then they, 2nd and 23, they get a 22-yard gain on a pass to Kanate Mumfield, but Holstein has to throw the ball away on 3rd and 1, and then 4th and 1. That's what they try. So not great. I'll tell you what is great though. Before we get back to more comments and questions, we're going to keep going on this for a little bit. We'll keep reading some comments and questions, so don't go anywhere. But I tell you what is great is homefieldapparel.com. I haven't talked about home field all night. I should. I obviously don't have home field on, but I wish I did. It would be much cooler, much more comfortable, and feel much better because home field has some of the best high quality gear that you're going to find. Some of the best t-shirts, sweatshirts, jackets, hats, koozies, all kinds of stuff. If you haven't seen home field's offerings, I don't know what you're doing. You're living under a rock because I've been talking about it forever. They're all over social media because their stuff is outstanding. Great graphics, great Pitt logos, great logos for schools all over the country, and they put them on a high quality material. The t-shirts, they hold their shape. No matter how many times you wash them, they hold their shape. They don't stretch out around the neck or get, weird around the waist or anything like that. They fit just as well today as they did the day I received them. They're super soft. They're really comfortable, and they look great. It's the best Pitt stuff you're going to find. Homefieldapparel.com. And if you go there now, and use the promo code PIT24, you can get 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. So go check it out. Look at their Pitt stuff. Look at, there's a lot of cool stuff. I found this really sweet shirt, an Evansville shirt. Oh, it's so sweet. It says Aces. Oh, it's awesome. So they have great stuff for schools all over the place. Definitely great stuff for Pitt. You got to go check it out. Homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code PIT24 to get 15% off your first order. All right, let's see what else we got to talk about here. What else you guys are saying? All right, let's scroll up, get as many early ones as possible. ZC717 says Pitt already matched its win total from last year. The revenge tour continues with the rivals. Cincinnati, check. West Virginia, check. Next up, Syracuse on 10-24. You know what? I mean, well, I guess they didn't play North Carolina last year, but they lost to Carolina in 22. So get that one back. There wouldn't be a revenge tour against Louisville because they won against Louisville last year. They beat Boston College last year. The last time they played Clemson, they won. Last time they played Virginia, they won. Right, that was in 2022. That was the game with the 2 pick sixes to open the game. Who else did they play? Cal and SMU. Well, they have no history there. But otherwise, yeah, revenge tour. Cincinnati down, West Virginia down. Now Syracuse coming up. But that's from a while from now. Is Syracuse off this weekend? I feel like I didn't see their score in there. Oh, well. It doesn't matter. Yeah, they must be off. Yeah, revenge tour. I like it. And you're right. They already have 3 wins. It took them until the 11th game of the season last year to get to 3 wins. Here they are. It's week 3, and they already have 3 wins. It's the little things. Let's see. My audio was not working earlier, so missed some of that. A few people were some of the comments as I'm scrolling through. I'm going back as far as I can on the comments, and a lot of people are saying, "Hey, we can't hear you," but we got that all fixed. Jarrell Park says, "What's going on with Desmond Reed?" Pat Narduzzi said he got a little banged up. Look, this is something we've been anticipating with Desmond Reed, that health could be an issue, longevity, durability, and it seems like he was. So on the last drive, on the touchdown drive, and even the last 2 touchdown drives, Desmond Reed was not on the field because he was banged up, and that's just part of it. So they were able to make plays in the passing game with Eli Holstein running without Desmond Reed on the field. But obviously you'd like to have him. I said this last week. I said this throughout the week. If it's up to me, Desmond Reed is not. He doesn't get shoulder pads for the Youngstown State game. Like, you don't even bring his pads to the stadium. You bring his jersey and a pair of yellow shorts and maybe an umbrella if it's going to be sunny or rainy or something. Like, Desmond Reed does not get on the field this week against Youngstown State. Doesn't even get close. Put him up in the booth. I don't care. Put him on a headset so he can listen to what the calls sound like. But he doesn't play. Derek Davis plays. Daniel Carter plays. Montrevious Lloyd plays. Caleb Williams plays. I don't care who plays. It's not Desmond Reed. Because you give him this week off, and then there's an off week. Give him time. If you do that, he doesn't have a game until 3 weeks from now. Give him time to get healthy. You need him in the final 8 games. You should not need him to beat Youngstown State. So give Desmond Reed some time. Let him get healthy and heal up whatever he needs to heal up. And even if it's just like a one-night thing and tomorrow he feels fine, great. Really glad to hear that. Don't need to have any additional hits on Desmond Reed. Desmond Reed needs to take no additional contact. He does not need to get hit. He does not need to carry the ball or do anything where someone is going to try to tackle him in the Youngstown State game. Don't play him, is what I say. But it's not up to me. I'm not the coach. I don't know how many guys I would apply that to, but he would definitely be one. Probably Ryan Jacoby, too. Pat Narduzzi said after the game that Jacoby was still banged up, not 100%, but really tried to go out and give it a go. Didn't really seem to work out, so Jason Collier was in, and that went however it went. I guess. I felt like a lot of the pressure came from the right side, at least later in the game. But Jacoby would be another one. Jacoby should get some rest. And anybody on defense who is, a little banged up. Key Thompson didn't play today. He was not in uniform. I think he was seen with his arm in a sling at the end of the Cincinnati game. So Brandon George played every snap on defense. Kyle Lewis, I think, played almost every snap on defense. I think he only missed one or two. He got hurt and came out. Almost got called for a targeting, but that the targeting call didn't stand, and I don't think it should have stood. I think they made the right call to turn that one down on review. But Kyle Lewis played almost every snap, came out after he got hurt a little bit, and only missed a play or two. Obviously, the game-winning interception. Brandon George, I think, played every snap on defense. But if Key Thompson's not ready, if Key Thompson's not ready, you've got to get another backup middle linebacker. You've got to get somebody else available to play at middle linebacker. So that Brandon George is not playing every single snap of the game as he did today. And it was great today. It obviously worked out, but you're not going to be able to do that every week. You're going to need another backup to step in there. We'll see what they decide to do. All right. Scroll here. I don't know if we have any other super chatters to get through. I'll read through a few more questions, a few more comments. We're past that hour and a half mark. I got some other things I want to do here, and let's be honest, it's getting a little bit late. But David, I'll just read a few, and then we'll stop every now and then. Ace Abo says, I've been freaking saying 10-2. Here we go, gentlemen. David Murphy says, give big credit to Cade Bell, the offensive coordinator. Needed 30-plus points and got it. Defense will grow up. Jason Martell says, Desmond Reed was banged up a bit, but sounds like he's okay. Davis partially in for pass pro, it seems. Yeah, maybe a little bit. ZC717 says, defense hasn't been perfect, but they got the key stops when they needed them. Yeah, they definitely did that. And offense, too, I think. Hold on. Yeah, I think both sides of the ball stepped up late in the game. Yeah, Paul Moore says the trick plays and that 4th and 1 call weren't great. Let's talk about that tomorrow. I appreciate that. Robert S. says, how much impact is the offensive output helping the defense and making opposing offenses have to abandon trying to run out the clock? Well, I think there's some amount of that happening. I think it would happen more if Pitt could get a lead. If Pitt could get a lead and put a little distance between themselves and the opponent, it would be one thing. This game never really got any further than that. I don't know if Pitt up 10 at one point. No, I mean, Pitt led 10-7. They led 24-17. And then they took the ultimate lead at 38-34. So they never led by more than a touchdown. And I think you have to, like on one hand, teams can't just sit on the run because they have to be a little more aggressive because they know that Pitt's offense can score. But I think you really force teams out of just leaning on the run the whole time when you put some space between yourself. If you get up by 2 touchdowns, then it gets a little bit more difficult. There's a little bit more pressure on the opposing offense to move the ball and score. Particularly if you're showing that you can do it consistently. You're showing that you can get out and go down the field pretty consistently. So if you get a 2-touchdown lead and you can score consistently on them, then they're going to be forced out of just leaning on the running game. But if you're never up by more than a touchdown, and if it's tied or you're trailing for most of the game like it was for today, well, that's a different story. West Virginia never was really all that compelled to get away from the running game because Pitt could never put any space between them and West Virginia. So I think there will be games this year where that happens, where Pitt's able to create some space there, get a 2-touchdown lead, go up by 17, and then teams have to abandon the run a little bit. But I don't think that was the case today. I don't think that really happened here. Panther Vision says, truth. We might not be that good, but that doesn't make the first 3 games any less memorable. I like, and maybe this is a good place to finish here. I don't know how good Pitt is, but here's what I know. Okay? First of all, last things first, they're 3-0. Period, point blank. They haven't done that in 4 years. They're 3-0. Okay? And the last time before 2020, I think they were 3-0 in like 2014 and maybe 2009. So they're 3-0. Okay? They also have come back from double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter 2 weeks in a row. They've played 2 power conference teams, and in both instances, they've come back from double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter and won. Now, you want to say to me, well, a good team doesn't go down by double digits in the fourth quarter. You're right. And you'd like to think this team will grow and evolve into a point where they're not falling into that trap. But what they've shown us is that even when they fall into that trap, they've got the ability to come back. They can come back. And they can come back because they've got a defense that can step up and make plays. And more importantly, they've got a quarterback. And well, it's almost 11:40 at night. So, I mean, maybe we can finish on this thought. I've gone back and forth on about how much to buy into Eli Holstein's heroics. You know, like given what he did against Cincinnati. I was like, all week, I was like, well, you know, you don't want to overstate it. It was one game. He went on the road. It was a great comeback on the road, but it was one game. Like, you don't want to get too crazy about, you know, hyping this, but he's done it 2 games in a row. One of them was on a road in a very hostile environment, down 3 touchdowns. The other was at home, but against a huge rival in a pressure-packed game, down 10 points with 5 minutes to go. And he stepped up and made the plays. I'm buying in on Eli Holstein. I think I'm buying in. All right. Any other super chatters before we go here? I don't think there were, but definitely a lot of great commenters and contributors and questions and all those things tonight. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. I think that's about long enough. We're right about that 100-minute mark, which seems like a pretty good spot to cut it off. Listen, before you go, make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Go check out Backshore, BackshoreApparel.com. Go check out Voodoo Brewing's Hop Water. It's awesome. Really good. And then go check out Home Field Apparel to get all your Pitt gear. Those are the things I want to promote to you, as well as the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. It's been a lot of fun. We had the double shot night. How about that, huh? But when you get a 10-point comeback in the backyard brawl in the fourth quarter, what are you going to do? You know, we're going to do one shot? Come on. You know, give me a break. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Like and subscribe. We'll have a morning Pitt for you on Monday to break everything down. But in the meantime, check out Panther-Lair.com to get all of your Pitt sports coverage. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Pitt wins 38-34. Panthers are 3-0 on the season. And this is a very interesting way to get this year started. So have a great night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday morning for the morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.